know whether we're going to use Samaritan's Purse or who we're going to use. So let's get rolling. You know, you've heard people with these storms kind of toss around the idea that these are man-made, which sounds crazy when you hear that. It sounds like something just a conspiracy theorist would say. But then we were examining it this morning on Check the News and found out that the technology is available. So number one, what were the two things we have? We have the CBS report about string. Oh yeah, the Weiss, what's the guy's name? The Reese report. So this is the Reese report. He has all his documentation. And I'm gonna play this because, you know, you hear people say it. Is there any basis to it that these are man-made? Does man have the power to do this? You know, this is difficult to come to grips with. Is there a plan? Are there powerful people that want America to be destroyed? I have a book that's entitled Understanding the World in Light of Bible Prophecy. If you've heard me preach, but not everybody has heard me preach. And it's not my idea. The Bible teaches that there's going to be a one world leader named Antichrist, one world government, one world military, one world economy. No man can buy or sell without the mark in their hand or in their forehead, and a one world religion. Well, if there's going, you can bring it back to me. If there's going to be that, if there's going to be a one world government, one world economy, one world religion, etc., then you can't have a strong, independent, sovereign nation with its own strong economy. And so, as Dr. Lester Summerall taught, the crosshairs are on America because this is the last domino that has to fall for these things to take place. And once America goes, there's nothing left to restrain the Antichrist system. There's not churches to do it. You say, well, the church is the restrainer. The churches in other countries are not going to restrain it. They proved that during the lockdowns. The only place you had anybody put up a fight against the illegal pushback against the church were some American churches. This is it. And that's why I've sent out emails and stuff for our ministry that says now or never. It's not clickbait. It's nothing like that. It's now or never, because if things go the wrong way, there's no coming back. America is worth fighting for because America is the last domino that has to fall before the devil has his plan to take over the world, and we're not going to let that happen. So I hate to even, it's insane to think about. Are these storms being manipulated by man, and are they steered by man? Does man have the power? These things that you hear people just tossing about, you know, these storms are man-made. Well, that's a pretty serious accusation. Let's explore if that's true. Again, if you'd like prayer during this time, you need help, maybe you're watching in North Carolina, Tennessee, or you have family there. We're here to pray with you. 412-440-1428. This is brought to you courtesy of the Reese Report. Go ahead and roll it.
We have had the technology to create, control, and steer hurricanes for decades.
Project Cirrus is the first official attempt to modify a hurricane. It was run by General Electric with the support of the U.S. military. The official theory was that by changing the temperature outside the eye wall of a hurricane, which they did by seeding the clouds with various compounds such as silver iodide, a decrease in strong winds will result. On October 13, 1947, Project Cirrus targeted a hurricane heading out to sea. Approximately 180 pounds of dry ice was dropped into the clouds. The crew then reported a pronounced modification of the cloud deck, and the hurricane abruptly changed direction and made landfall near Savannah, Georgia. The public blamed the government. Irving Langmuir, who pioneered General Electric's Atmospheric Research Department and admitted that the project was about learning how to weaponize the weather, also claimed the reversal of the hurricane had been caused by Project Cirrus. But the government denied it for 12 years. After a short delay, the project officially continued, and in 1965, Project Storm Fury had targeted Hurricane Betsy for seeding. On that day, the storm immediately changed direction and made landfall in southern Florida. Congress blamed it on Project Storm Fury, but the government claimed that the hurricane shifted before they ever had a chance to seed it. And after 2 months of congressional hearings, the project was allowed to continue.
In 1997, U.S. Defense Secretary William Cohen admitted we have the technology to control the weather, including earthquakes and volcanoes. The U.S. government has placed gag orders on employees of the National Weather Service. In October of 2012, after Hurricane Sandy weakened to a tropical storm, microwave imagery shows a thick red beam immediately followed by Sandy growing into a Category 1 hurricane and taking an unexplained left turn into New Jersey. The push towards alternative energy demands more lithium, and according to the U.S. Geological Survey, the United States has over 6 million tons of identified lithium resources. The majority of this lithium has been identified in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Kings Mountain is believed to have one of the largest resources in the world. But the biggest problem is that people live there, and they don't want their quiet towns turned into lithium mines.
People in Cherville have been pushing against a proposed lithium mine for the last several years, but everyone we spoke with here said it's too divisive of an issue to share their opinion on camera. Cherryville is a small, quiet town.
I think that's good that we keep it small.
So quiet, many don't feel comfortable speaking out against Piedmont Lithium's proposed mining operation nearby.
I think we're a silent majority. I think a lot of people are afraid to say anything about it because they are bringing a lot to the town as far as money.
Last year,
Thanks,
the
Joey.
Department of Defense entered a $90 million agreement with Albemarle Corporation to increase domestic production of lithium for the nation's battery supply chain, specifically from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, starting by 2025. This is the same area experiencing what is being described as biblical floods. While the federal government spends billions on foreign wars and illegal immigrants, they simply cannot be bothered with the health and well-being of the American people, especially those living on coveted mineral-rich land.
Pause it.
Reporting for Info.
Is there a way? Oh, that's the end of it anyway. Okay, you can bring it back to me. So again, I'm not telling you anything. I'm not making any accusations, but that's all documented. That the government has a contract to begin mining that lithium that town sits over in 2025. And then you heard him say that the money that's supposed to help those people are going to foreign wars. Well, the left response to that, the liberal response, is that no, there is no money left to FEMA. The money that goes to foreign wars is different than the money that is allocated for FEMA. So it's not that we took the money from that and put it in there, as if there's no ability to transfer funds. So do you have that clip I sent you where that Kristen Welker, I believe her name is, made that point this weekend to one of our Congress people? Well, she tried something but failed miserably. For the record, it is insane to me that anybody goes in to journalism for what it is now, because all journalists do seemingly is run cover for politicians. You know, they make their points for them. They don't ask questions and want to find out the response, and then they look to nail people to the wall that are questioning the narrative. So what it says is what happened. Well, she tried something there but failed miserably. Roll it full screen.
My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside,
Pause.
like the idea that FEMA...
Bring it back to me. Okay, you just are calling it misinformation. And, you know, I'll give you an example. It's like when Trump said they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. And then what was the mainstream media's response? We called the city manager from Springfield, Ohio, and he said that's not happening. That's like what they used to do in the Soviet Union. We called the fellow government official that's there that works with us, and he assured us everything's okay. How about doing some actual investigative journalism instead of just trying to make this guy go back on what he said? You know, I don't know if you know this or not, Kristen Welker, but they actually have the technology now to transfer money from one account to another account. Play it from the beginning. You can keep me on the side.
My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies. And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find them.
Play that one more time from the beginning. I want everybody to hear that again.
My broader question to you, I think, is about this misinformation. Do you think this is a time to put falsehoods aside, like the idea that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants, which is just not true?
Well, it is true that FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security have been spending billions of dollars on migrants. Now, I understand some people say they're separate funds, but we just passed a short-term spending bill. It's very common for the administration to come and ask for permission to move money between funds, especially to prepare for emergencies.
Great answer, whoever that is. I should know who it is, but I don't. Whoever this guy is that cuts his own hair. He did a great job answering that, and she had no follow-up. It's amazing that these people seem intelligent, and then when they're pressed, all they know is whatever emailed talking point they got that morning, and then if you have an answer to it, they just shut down. They've like zero thinking for themselves. It is common to move money from one account to another. Continue.
And second, I would note that this administration seems to have no problem finding money when they want to spend it on their priorities. When they need hundreds of billions of dollars to pay off student loans for graduate students in gender studies programs, they somehow find it. When it's trying to get helicopters to deliver food and water and cellular service and life-saving medicine into these mountain valleys, they somehow can't seem to find them.
Exactly right. Well said. Okay, and then they brought up what you just watched about when people say these storms are man-made. Is that possible? You just saw documented evidence that it is possible. Not accusing people of doing that in North Carolina, but there's a lot of shady coincidences. Senator Josh, are you sure? I don't think that's Josh Hawley. I don't want to question my own mom. Yeah, it's Tom Cotton. That's right. Not to go against my own mother, but I believe it is Tom Cotton. So here's what I said, because I knew about cloud seeding. That's an old thing. Are they able to create storms? Yes. Are they able to steer storms? That's where I thought you had to draw the line. Yeah, they can seed clouds. They could make a storm because they can do it. We just saw that documented. Would they have the power to guide that storm? This is from CBS News, I believe. If it's not CBS, it's NBC. 2016. What would that be? 8 years ago. This is me. So you can't call this misinformation because you put it out. I'm re-putting out what was put out by mainstream media that I'm sure they wish they didn't put out. Roll it.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion, though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
Go ahead.
Well, this fascinates me in part because, too, I remember reading the stories that China had used this during the Olympics, that the USSR had used this after Chernobyl to create rain clouds. I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War, to wash out the Viet Cong. Governments have been playing with this thing.
Alleged to.
Alleged to, right.
Yeah.
Now, we realize that for decades now, these governments have been alleged to have experimented with weather control, but nothing conclusive. This time we're bringing in the laws of physics rather than simply waving our hands and uttering mumbo-jumbo. We're actually using trillion-watt lasers now. And in the laboratory, sure enough, they precipitate rain out of water vapor. Sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops, and if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine?
Well, the bad news is, if it's a clear blue sky...
Charlie Rose, barely alive, barely able to get the question out. Back it up 15 seconds and let's listen to Charlie Rose do his best to get the question out.
Out of water vapor, sure enough, you can actually bring down electricity down the beam.
So what does it mean for drought areas that need to have rain for crops, and if they don't have them, there's the consequences of famine?
Well, the bad news is, if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor Michio Kaku. Thank you so much.
I'm going to play that one more time because that's pretty... In fact, I'm going to play the whole thing one more time. So let's go Reese report. You can keep me on the side, and then let's go with that explanation. Maybe you were already familiar with this. To me, this is crazy because you hear people say stuff like that, and I think a lot of people would be in the same boat as me. If somebody had brought this up in 2018, you'd have just turned the channel. You probably won't even be watching me right now. As soon as I started talking about this, you'd be like, this guy's nuts. But then it's like what the devil meant for his benefit is working against him, that now we have seen not only how wicked people are, but how wicked they're willing to be to destroy the planet. I mean, when you have people make casual statements that there's 8 billion people on planet Earth and it needs to go back down to 1 billion, you know, what are they saying? They're okay with the death of 7 billion people. This is 40 days of Faith for America, night 6, weather, welter, and weakness, the plan to destroy America, and more importantly, what you can do to reverse